about human evolution. How from residing in the caves, they discovered fire, wheel, agriculture, and rose to create grand empires. How they conquered the depths of the earth and ocean and the unknown vast vistas of the universe. And they have launched satellites and space stations and are now thinking of building colonies on Moon and the Mars. How, despite being physically inferior than most of the animals on this planet, they have dominated them all and have established themselves as the master of the universe. This is a story of the great human race, an eulogy to that extraordinary mind which turned natural substances into resources and utilized them to propel himself at the apex of the ecosystem. But at the same time, we have also read of Roman wars, industrial revolution, which led to exploitative utilization of natural resources, colonization of African and Asian nations, forcing millions of people into abject poverty and slavery. We have also read of the world wars, the Holocaust, the nuclear carnage, incidents that brought out the basest instincts in human beings: hatred, untamed desire to dominate and control and destruct everything that refuses to bow down. Sometimes my mind reels to think, are we actually one human race, killing each other and inflicting untold miseries on our own people? Even today, if we take a stock of where we stand, we find nations embroiled in a Cold War-like situation. Certain portions of the world resembling perpetually a theater of international intrigues and civil wars. Human beings divided on so many fault lines: race, religion, gender, caste. Look at us. We are embroiled in infighting amongst ourselves. We are at crossroads with nature due to environmental problems created by us only. And in the name of God, we have turned religion into a business and ground for fighting. We are in a crisis on all the fronts. It's time to ponder. Whenever we have a problem, what do we look for in the first instance? We look for the root cause. And the root cause of all the problems of human society is the seeming difference amongst us all at the surface. Black, brown, white, Indian, American, Russian, Hindu, Muslim, Christian. We're all so different. And also of the lack of understanding of the underlying similarity amongst us. Science has explored this area and has given us the answer when Robert Hooke told that everything is composed of cells, and when Dalton told that each cell is made up of atoms and the atoms also have the similar basic components. The same theory was propounded by the Vaisheshik school of Indian philosophy when it told about the basic components called Panchabhutas: earth, sky, water, fire and ether. That means that everything that we see or even don't see but exist in this universe is made up of the same basic elements, the Panchabhutas. The very existence of ours is similar. Another myth that has wreaked havoc across the globe is the concept of purity of blood and superiority of certain races. It has manifested itself in agonizingly dehumanizing distinctions such as racism in USA and Germany, apartheid in Africa, and caste system in India. But anthropologists have smashed this concept by tracing the origin of entire humankind to Africa. From there, they migrated all over and intermixed. Not only humans, but other species such as turtles, butterflies, birds, and even the plants' seeds also migrate. Biologists say that if a species interbreeds too closely, the genes become weak and their chances of survival are less. So, assimilation, migration, intermixing, that is the law of nature. And human beings, as a part of nature, have been following this law. History tells us that there has been so much of migration of human beings around this world that looking for purity of blood at this point of time is nothing but a farce. We all have mixed blood in our veins and mixed genes in all of us. So, fighting on this issue is just nonsensical. After now being convinced about the underlying similarity of all human beings, I have also tried to find an answer to the question, that despite there being so many outlying reasons for strife, is it possible to create peace and harmony in the world? Yes, it is possible. At least if not to remove the fear altogether, to at least minimize it to an extent that we can have an equilibrium where everybody flourishes together, as it exists in the nature in the form of various ecosystem cycles, the interdependence of all living and non-living material. We all know that right now we are sitting on a boiling lava inside the Earth's mantle, but there is a very strong crust at the surface which holds the surface together and over which the entire life flourishes. So in the similar fashion, it is possible to attain that equilibrium where despite differences, all can flourish together. And this will be possible only when human beings realize that diversity at the surface is alright. It's natural. Not everything has to be monolithic. If we had only roses and no marigolds and tulips, wouldn't it be too rosy and boring? Could we just have elephants roaming around and no mice and termites? If we did not have any cultural diversity, what would be so special about visiting Europe or India or East Asia? Therefore, diversity needs to be celebrated and not hated. I derive the understanding of religion from Sanatan Dharma as I follow it. And the Rig Veda says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadante. The truth is one. The wise call it by different names. So we don't need to convert everybody to our faith or customs. Rather, we need to approach them with curiosity and respect. See their customs and you will be marveled to discover the similarities with your own customs. In my understanding, every religion consists of two components, core values and the rituals. Read any of the holy books and you will find that the core values of all religions are same. They are very similar to your own values: love, compassion, brotherhood, service to humanity. Mazhab nahi sikhata, aapas mein bair rakhna. It is only those who want to misuse religion for the vested interest of theirs to gain power who preach violence in the name of God. God has created all the human beings. He would never ask one of his children to kill another. So this awakening must come in people so that they stop being pawns in the game of power of a few. But how would we attain this awakening? Through education, through enlightenment. Remember what Shankaracharya said in his Advaitavad? Not dual, but one. God and men are one. This is what Darashikoh said, that Upanishads and Islam say the same thing, that God is one and human beings are his reflections. This is what was said in the 18th century during the European Enlightenment, when they put the human beings in the center and brought logic and reasoning into thinking. The same was done in 19th century in Indian Renaissance, when Swami Vivekananda said, service to humanity is the service to God. So you don't need the mediators to teach you what your God and what your religion is. Read for yourself the holy books and you will be able to see through the propaganda that has been created all across the globe in the name of religion. I firmly believe that if each one of us follows the core teachings of our respective religions, there would be no reason to fight in the name of God. Education would also be our passport to get out of the environmental crisis. If we educate our children amidst nature, as Rabindranath Tagore advocated, that if a child grows up caring for a sapling, he would never have the heart to cut a tree later on in his life, because he will identify himself with that tree. I have seen it happening in Bhutan, and we all know that Bhutan still has 71% of its forest cover intact. So we need to learn from this tiny nation how to create a balance between material development and environmental protection. So, in my opinion, if we focus on the basic unit, the human being and his enlightenment, we would be able to reduce the conflict to a very large extent. If we can educate our children and enable them to extend their sphere of thinking from I to we, to feel that emotional connect with all other human beings as part of one human family, and to also see their connectedness with other elements of nature, this equilibrium would be attained. As Leonardo da Vinci said, learn how to see, realize that everything is connected to everything else. Thus, assimilation and syncretism is the way forward to have a harmonious existence. As happens in nature, when two different genes come together, they create something new and more beautiful, which has the characteristics of the earlier two, but also at the same time has its own intrinsic beauty and its own characteristics. So that is how life moves on. At the end, I would also like to answer one more question, which I have been asking myself several times. That all these teachings of love, compassion, assimilation, intermixing, cooperation, they have been preached many a times by many great people over the centuries. But still, it has not been able to remove the conflicts from the world. So what is the point of one more person repeating the same thing? The answer to it is that if these preachings had no effect, the world would have already crumbled under the weight of hatred and violence. The fact that it still exists and that you and I are still talking of these values is a proof enough that at least they had been able to enlighten a large portion of people who had carried forward these values from generation to generation, and they had been able to counterbalance the force of nature. We all have heard about E is equal to mc squared, that the energy in the universe remains constant always. It only changes form. So now it is up to you and me to increase the proportion of goodness in this energy around us by illuminating ourselves and spreading this light of goodness in our respective spheres of influence by our decisions and actions in life. This is how we will all contribute in establishing peace in this world. The choice is with us, hatred or love. I choose love. Now it's time for you to ponder. Thank you.